Brought to the U.S. in the 1800s from the Far East, it was an ornamental plant, then in the 1900s was planted in areas to supposedly control soil erosion.
A simple invitation to a birthday party in 1876 sparked one of the greatest environmental disasters in history. Texas and other southern states were desperate for a way to save their soil from blowing away. They chose a solution that critics called foolish and desperate. Now, that same solution is a green concrete that is suffocating the ecosystem. This plant is not just surviving, it is thriving on the carbon dioxide we pump into the atmosphere.
This is my property where you can see kudzu is swallowing up a couple of trees, and it grows at an astonishing rate.
It is a survival specialist that has turned the entire region into a laboratory for a global takeover. The truth about its underground bunkers will change how you look at nature forever. Star of the show. The story of how this invasion began is one of the strangest parts of the entire tale because it was not an invasion at all. It was an invitation. In 1876, the United States was celebrating its 100th birthday with a massive event called the Centennial Exposition. This was a place where countries from all over the globe showed off their best inventions and most beautiful nature. Japan built a stunning garden that was filled with sweet-smelling flowers and broad, lush leaves. People who walked through that garden were mesmerized by the elegant and exotic plant they saw there. It grew incredibly fast and provided deep shade, which seemed perfect for the hot American summers. This plant was kudzu, and at that moment, it was the star of the show. During the late 1800s, Americans were obsessed with anything exotic. If a plant came from far away, people believed it had to be better than what was already in their yard. Nursery owners saw how much the crowds loved the vine, and they immediately saw a way to make money. They began selling it as a decorative vine for front porches. It was marketed as the perfect way to create a cool space to sit during the humid July heat. Thousands of people planted it next to their front doors and watered it with care. They had no idea they were putting a monster in the ground that would one day try to eat the very house it was shading. The real explosion happened a few decades later when the government got involved. During the era of the Dust Bowl, American soil was in a state of emergency. The dirt was washing away in the rain and blowing away in the massive windstorms. Farmers were losing everything, and the government was desperate for a quick fix. They remembered the fast-growing vine from the exposition and decided it was a miracle solution for the drought and erosion. They did not just suggest planting it, they actually paid people to do it. The government paid farmers up to $8 an acre, which was a huge amount of money at that time. They wanted to blanket the fields with this stuff to keep the dirt in place. They set up clubs and even crowned queens at festivals to celebrate the plant. Over 70 million seedlings were put into the dirt across the South. But here is the catch that no one considered at the time. In its home country, this plant has natural enemies like insects that eat it and cold winters that destroy it back. In the warm and humid climate of the American South, there were no bouncers at this all-you-can-eat buffet. By the 1950s, the tone of the story changed completely. Farmers noticed that the miracle vine did not care about property lines or fences. It crawled into the forest and climbed up telephone poles with ease. It enveloped barns until they looked like green mounds. The speed was supernatural, reaching 1 foot every single day.
Now, kudzu can grow more than a foot every day and can be very difficult to kill off.
There is a wild theory that has lived in the Deep South for many years. Old-timers swear that if you sit quiet enough on a porch at night, you can actually hear the vine growing. They say it sounds like a low crackle as the fibers stretch and the leaves move in the dark. For a long time, experts said this was just folklore or ghost stories told by scared farmers. However, some researchers now suggest that the hydraulic pressure inside the plant is so aggressive that it might actually create vibrations humans can hear. This plant is so powerful that it seems to hum with its own energy. The rest of the country did not hear the humming, and they mostly just laughed. They saw photos of cars completely covered in grain and joked that the people were too lazy to trim their hedges. They did not understand that if you park a car in a field and leave it for a week, the tires will be gone. If you leave it for a month, the engine block is wrapped in vines so tight they can crack the metal. The mockery was based on the idea that humans are always in control of nature. If a plant is winning a war, people assume it is because the humans are failing. But the farmers on the ground knew this was not a normal weed. They sensed an aggression that felt intentional and calculated. This leads to a darker theory about why the government pushed the plant so hard. Some believe that experts warned the agencies about the risks of such an aggressive species. The bureaucrats were so desperate to stop the soil loss that they chose to ignore the science. They wanted a short-term fix for the drought, and they created a long-term disaster for the environment. By 1970, the government officially called it a weed, but it was far too late to stop it. The miracle vine had become a green menace covering 7 million acres. People still did not realize the full extent of the horror waiting for them. The secret weapon was hidden deep under the feet of everyone trying to fight back. Invincible root system. When people realized their land was being eaten, they tried every possible way to eliminate the threat. This is where the mockery from the rest of the country got even louder because the plant kept winning every battle. The first line of defense was using machines like mowers, tractors, and machetes. But the vine is not like normal grass. The stems are tough, fibrous ropes that wrap around axles and choke engines. You can ruin a $10,000 tractor in a single afternoon trying to clear a patch. Even if you manage to cut it down, the plant has a terrifying way to survive. Every place where a leaf comes out of the stem can turn into a new root. When you run a mower over it, you are basically chopping it into thousands of baby plants and spreading them around. You are not eliminating the problem, you are farming it. Then people tried using fire to burn it to ash. It makes sense to think that fire would solve the issue. The dry vines in the winter burn very easily and look like they are gone forever. For a few days, the field is black and quiet, and it feels like a victory. But as soon as the rain hits the ground, bright neon green shoots poke out of the ash. It feels like psychological warfare because the plant seems to come back even faster after it has been burned. This is why the lazy insults from outsiders really hurt the farmers. People would see a field burn and then see it green again 2 weeks later and assume the farmer was not trying. They did not understand the biology of the enemy. The real secret is found deep underground. This plant puts almost all of its energy into massive structures called tubers. These are root balls that look like giant deformed potatoes. They can grow to be the size of an adult human and weigh up to 400 pounds, 181 kilograms. They can reach depths of 10 feet 3 into the heavy clay. These tubers act like survival bunkers that store water and food. When you cut the leaves on top, the root does not care at all. It has enough energy stored to regrow the entire plant dozens of times without any help. It is like fighting an iceberg where you are only attacking the small parts you can see. Then the era of heavy chemicals began, as farmers sprayed millions of gallons of industrial poison. At first, it looked like it might work, as the leaves turned brown and dropped off. But then a wild theory started to feel very real to the people on the land. Farmers noticed that after a few years of spraying, the plant did not die as easily. It was as if the vine was learning how to survive the poison. Plants do not have brains, but there is a field of study called plant neurobiology that suggests they can sense danger. Researchers speculate that when a vine is attacked, it sends chemical signals down to the root and out to the rest of the colony. It tells the other plants to shut down their pores and protect the main body. It acts like a hive mind where you spray one section and the whole patch reacts. This intelligence is what really terrified the local people. They felt like they were fighting an enemy that could think and adapt to their attacks. The media ignored this complexity and continued to treat it like a simple gardening problem. They did not see the massive structural damage being done to the environment. The weight of the water inside the vines is so heavy that it can pull down a full-grown oak tree. It creates an effect that people call green concrete. It covers a forest and weighs down the trees until they snap in half. It is not just trees that are at risk. It rips the siding off houses and pulls down power lines with ease. There are rumors of old wooden barns in remote areas that simply collapsed inward under the slow hug of the vine. The wildest theory about this physical power is that the plant is attracted to electricity. Some researchers have pointed out how often it targets power poles and wraps around transformers. They wonder if the plant is feeding on the electromagnetic field produced by the wires. While mainstream science says it is just looking for the sun, the coincidence feels very creepy to those who have to fix the lines. Utility companies spend millions of dollars every year just to scrape the vines off the grid. The failure of these machines and poisons led people to try using goats. Goats are the only things that seem to actually hurt the plant because they eat it down to the ground. But you have to keep the goats in the same spot for many years. The second the goats leave, the root wakes up and starts the invasion all over again. The South was stuck with a plant that broke their machines and laughed at their fire. The biggest twist was that the real fuel for the monster was floating in the air. Nature's toxic cheat code. For a long time, no one could figure out why the growth was accelerating so fast. In the 1990s, the plant seemed to shift into a higher gear. It started appearing in places where it should not be able to grow. The mockery continued with people saying it was just the heat, but the farmers knew something was wrong. A team of researchers at a major university decided to look into the atmosphere for answers. Plants eat carbon dioxide to grow, and humans have been pumping massive amounts of it into the air. The researchers wanted to know if this specific plant liked the extra carbon more than native species. The answer was a terrifying yes. Most native trees like oaks and maples have a limit to how much they can eat. They are like polite guests at a dinner party. This invasive vine is a glutton with no limit at all. The study proved that as carbon levels rise, the plant does not just grow bigger. It actually mutates its functionality to become even more efficient. It treats the carbon in the air like a high-grade steroid. But the most shocking part is how it handles water. Usually, a plant has to open its pores to take in carbon, which causes it to lose water. This is a natural trade-off that keeps growth in check. Because there is so much carbon in the air now, the vine can get all the food it needs without opening its pores very wide. This means it keeps all of its water inside and becomes resistant to drought. While the native trees are suffering from the heat and lack of rain, this monster is perfectly hydrated and getting stronger. This validated every theory that the farmers had about the plant being different. They were not fighting a normal weed, they were fighting a monster fed by the global economy. Every time a car is driven in a big city, it is providing food for the vines in the countryside. But it gets even wilder than that. There is a theory that the plant is actively changing the local weather to suit itself. Massive patches of green absorb heat differently than a normal forest. Some believe these areas create heat islands that change the humidity and temperature. It is essentially terraforming the land to make it perfect for more growth.
Kudzu is growing uncontrollably through neighborhoods affected by the fires.
The research also found that the plant changes the chemistry of the soil in a dangerous way. It takes nitrogen from the air and forces it into the ground, which then releases nitrous oxide. This is a greenhouse gas that is nearly 300 times more powerful than carbon dioxide. The plant eats the carbon, grows huge, and then burps out an even worse gas. It is a biological pollution machine that is accelerating the very problem that feeds it. This destroys the idea that the plant is at least helpful because it is green. It is actually a major villain in the story of climate change. This green takeover shows that every choice we make has a massive impact on the world around us. Do you think there is still a way to win this war against the vines? Leave a comment and let me know your thoughts on this mystery. Make sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into nature.